Hello there, and that is probably the noisiest intro I'm gonna do. It makes a lot of noise out of the box, but today we are going to be building Yoda's Starfighter, the new one that just come out. And I don't have a box for this set because I have parted out the pieces from my own collection, which means it might differ a little bit. But with how many Star Wars sets I have, I wanted to see just how easy it was to part out this set, as it looked so much similar to the old one, and a few of the pieces from my duplicate of the older model definitely come in handy. And not only are we building this Starfighter, but I also parted out my old one so I could rebuild it, compare the builds for both of them, and see which is the ultimate Yoda's Starfighter. In parting this out, I did print off all the pieces from the end of the instruction manual to make sure my old one was as complete as it could be. And if you see, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 pieces that were in fact missing from the one that I've had on display for so long that I must have just pulled out and needed for other builds. But this is a complete bag now. I found these pieces, and even for the newer model, I managed to have so many of the pieces already in my collection. However, as you can see with my doodlings, a few of them are in different colours, and if you look closely, I've borrowed one of these from the gauntlet. I've in fact borrowed two of these from Boba's helmet, so I've had to be a bit creative with where I'm getting the pieces from. And I've kind of got the R2 torso. I don't have back printing, but when it's in the ship it will look no different to the other one. And I didn't realise that the Yoda that comes in both of these are pretty much identical, and they haven't even updated Yoda for the re-release. Let's push this bag aside for now, as we'll be doing that last and focusing mostly on the newer model. Let's get building. As you can see, Yoda and R2 are already built in the bag, as I didn't feel the need to break these apart. The Yoda again is the same as usual, and the R2 that would have come in this set would have had back printing, which would look so much nicer than the R2 we're used to. And I would really like to see it on more droids. We've got it also in Chopper, who's coming out in the Ghost that we're getting in September. But the recent Yavin set included a droid without back printing, and especially when they have the printing all set up for R2, just to recolour it and print it on that droid for £150 for the set is a little disappointing to see, but hopefully the changes will be made soon and we'll get back printing on all our droids in the future. Whilst I sort out these technical difficulties, I'd also like to let you know that in the next issue of the magazine, coming late September for all of us in the UK, we are getting a double figure polybag, including the new C-3PO with arm printing that we're beginning to see in so many sets. And also, if you didn't know, this month we're getting the Stormtrooper, which is a cool way to get it, especially with the mech that's out at the same time. So I'll definitely be comparing which one's more worth your money in a future video. Somehow I've been missing two pieces so far. I've bagged this, checked it off myself, so I know the pieces were here. Somehow when I've moved it around I must have misplaced them, or perhaps in building this set I'm going to find them and I've knocked them on the floor, or they're still in the pile and I just can't see them. So I've grabbed a 1x2 black tile from my collection to add to it, and a 2x3 light bluish grey tile. Hopefully that's it. There's only one way to find out. now we are finally onto the last bag, which looks to only be the wings, as we seem to have the rest of the build built. And even now, when we've only got the one bag's worth of pieces, they'd usually include a smaller bag inside it for all these littler pieces, especially these little Technic pieces, and it just makes it so much easier generally. Besides the odd missing piece that I've had to replace, I haven't found this too difficult. Oh, come on. I get to the end, I've done all of this, and now it says ×2. I guess this is a little precursor that if you are building this model, do look out for the ×2, and I should have known, and Yoda's Starfighter needing 2 wings to fly, but I hadn't even thought of it, it hadn't crossed my mind, so now I guess I'll be going back, doing another, and I'll see you in a minute. Now it just so happens that the stickers on the new one look to be the exact same as the stickers on the old Yoda Starfighter. So I do in fact have these stickered pieces right here from that old one that I can apply straight to this newer one. And at least there's some stickers, as I don't have these top or side ones, but it still gets the same idea of the model across. And if you look closely enough, just in this gap here, you can see we are putting this into here, and I'm not quite sure if this is a creative design that the Lego team have used just to get an extra 2 pieces in, or if there is something in universe that this is meant to represent. However, it's quite neat that it just slots into this little hole, just like so. And if the camera wants to keep working and I don't forget any pieces, that should be the complete model. I guess this is the 1x2 piece that I had instead of the plate. I've got this modified tile with the 1 stud on top, and for some reason I also have a 2x2 plate, which I'm not sure if I've put a piece in the wrong bag. We'll have to see when we build the next model. And of course the 2 missiles go in just like so, and you can fire them wherever you choose. As you can see, these are absolutely lethal bits of plastic, but make for a fun play feature. And if we open the cockpit, we can put Yoda inside. I don't think he can fit with his lightsaber, so we will have to take that off him. But there is a clip just at the back of the model where you can clip it if you didn't want to put it elsewhere, which doesn't look too bad. It don't get in the way when you're swooshing it around, as it tends to be where you hold the model. But Yoda fits in quite nicely. There's not much headroom. I don't know if you can see through the cockpit, but there's not much headroom for Yoda, but there's just enough for him to be in that cockpit. Now, perhaps it would have been nice to have got the modified bricks with the stud on the side to act as his legs. If you've seen any images of the new Lego Rivendell, you'll know what I mean for the hobbits. And it would give Yoda some little booty cheeks at the back, which would be hilarious, but it wouldn't make him any shorter. There's no problem with him standing. It just would have been a nice touch. And R2 clips in the back. Before I clip him in, you can actually see there's 3 studs holding him down, which usually you either go for the middle one or the side ones. I don't think I've seen one with all 3, but he clips in just like so, and because of the 3 studs, he is firmly in. I mean, you could swoosh around the model just by holding the R2 instead. As you can see, I've got my hand underneath it. I don't completely trust it, but it swooshes. And now, as for the model itself, it is a really cool model. As I said, when they released images for it, they have definitely improved the last one. And just the way it looks in the image and in the hand. Obviously, they've posed out the wings a bit more. Perhaps that is what this piece here is for, as unlike the last one, you can't overfold the wings. So that is really neat and doesn't get in the way. Well, unless you wanted the wings to open more. But you can also sit it down, and whilst it doesn't exactly stand, the wings do remain as they are. On the old one, I believe they squished, and folded into the model, but we'll get onto that in just a sec. And to be fair, I do think this is a little underrated, as the Lego set hasn't been met with the warmest of welcomes. However, for the full price right now on lego.com, I don't know, I just don't think that this set is worth that much. Perhaps if it come with a minifigure like the Kenobi Starfighter, I mean, getting one of the wheels with this set alongside Yoda and R2 would have been amazing. This would have been flying off the shelves. However, just Yoda and R2 for the price point of £30. I have a similar opinion about this Tennu Temple, which I did review in yesterday's video. For £40, really you're going to want 4 figures, and I know I do include the droid, but Lego does not, so we really should have got nubs with it. And likewise with this, 30 quid, I would want another minifigure. It's from a scene in the Clone Wars, which there aren't any other characters really involved, but perhaps a Force Ghost Qui-Gon would have also worked well with him showing up in the Kenobi series. And again, that extra minifigure would just make this set so much more desirable. But I guess it's a nice way to get Yoda if you haven't already. Of course, the Clone Wars variant and some back printing on R2 here. But I am sure R2 with back printing isn't going anytime soon and will be here to stay. So if you do want R2 with back printing, I would suggest holding off on this set for now and seeing what sets come in the future. Now we've done the first build. As you can see, there is a spare missile if you do lose them, because I'm sure many of you lose these pieces and they're easier to find than the studs. But if this flicks behind a cabinet or a large piece of furniture, are you really going to want to be moving it for this? And let's put this aside and start with the older model. I can just see out of the corner of my eye the camera keep flickering on and off. I don't know if it's recording or not. Hopefully it still is. I do apologise for the poor visuals today. I'll try and get that sorted as soon as possible, but I just don't know what's happening. But whilst I am building, I would like to just express how much more difficult this set is to make than the other, as it is a lot of Technic stuff at the bottom, which thankfully Lego have sort of removed themselves from steering towards. Most Lego tries to stay away from Technic and has the odd piece, which you might have seen in building the last one. But even this 1x4 on the bottom, it's not attached to anything. So every time I go to like hold it and press my thumb near it, it just pops off. And just putting on these pieces, as you can see on the instructions, you have to make sure both axles are lined up and are both vertical, as these are pinned together, and it just makes it really complicated to put together. So I'm very happy that the new one does not include any of this and is much more of a Lego based build, as we didn't really see many pure Lego bricks in the first couple of steps. And hopefully, looking at my pile, there is very few Technic pieces to go, and the only real pieces are what connect the wings later on. Oh, and of course the engines. I mentioned with the other one, I really don't like these engines, but of course I'm not going to start modifying this one. Well, not yet at least. So let's get this built and hopefully be over with quickly. And we can't forget to load the cannons, but just look at some of these sets that are out around the same time. I definitely remember picking up that Scarif base, and also that Duel on Naboo. Duel of the Fates, I had to pick it up. And perhaps both of them sets can be turned into dioramas now, but I got a few more I'm working on for you, so they'll have to be added to the list. Even looking at the minifigures, I completely forgot Kanan and Thrawn came in the Phantom 2 set, and it's one of the sets I really regret not buying, as I hadn't watched Rebels and saw it everywhere. But now I'm sure the price will be way too large, and especially we'll probably never get another Kanan figure. I mean, you never know with sets like these coming out, but even that Thrawn would be so great to have leading into Ahsoka for all the possibilities when it comes to dioramas. But I'm quite happy with my cheery little Thrawn. And looking back to the set, of course, that is why we're here. You can see that the older model of Yoda's starship, or Jedi starship as they say, as I'm not sure this is exactly Yoda's personal ship, does look a bit small compared to the new one. Now that's no camera trickery. They do look very different in size, and whilst the measurements I'm sure aren't that different, this one's definitely on the smaller side, so let's take a closer look at both of them. Starting off with the minifigures themselves, obviously I don't have the minifigures for the new set, but the Yodas are pretty much identical. I'll let you know on screen if there are in fact any differences. And of course R2 is roughly the same, except for that back printing, which loads of people definitely favour over the older plain back. And taking a look at the ships, let me just clear the spare pieces away. You can definitely tell which one is the newer model. And as I said, the newer model does in fact stand up on its wings without crushing it. Whereas this slightly older model, if you were to stand the wings up a little bit and put it down, it holds up pretty well, but eventually will topple down and the wings at the bottom will fold in, unless you fold them all the way out, which I think looks a little silly. It definitely no longer looks like a Jedi fighter that we're used to seeing, but it does kind of stand up. I suppose if you wanted to put just the top wings in, it's not too bad, but I definitely prefer the newer model. And actually, this old one is standing up on its own, whereas the newer model does lean forward, where the wings are that much more wedged off. And as you can see by comparing them side on, the wings definitely look better. And even though I'm pretty sure the old one uses more pieces to create the wings, the new one takes use of smaller pieces and better shaped pieces. And especially with them connections, you've not left all this technique exposed and just have the one stud which holds the wings where they should be. Even looking from the back, you can see that the engines are slightly wider on the older one and are right next to each other on the newer one. And you do have that nasty clip that most people will not want on their model. But if that was really a big problem, you can just take out this piece and put in a 1x2 plate there, which I'm sure you have plenty of in your collection, especially in this grey colour if you collect Star Wars ships, as so many of them have mostly grey pieces. Of course, a few of these pieces are meant to be green, such as on the wing and this rounded piece back here, but I didn't have the pieces in my collection, and even without the specific colours for most of these pieces, well, a few of the pieces, the ship still looks really cool. And if these were both on shelves, I definitely know which one I'd be picking up. I mean, there's no debate which one is the better model. It's definitely this newer one. They've had more time to perfect it and they can build off the older model. And one thing I noticed whilst building, you may have noticed too, is that when you're opening and closing the cockpit, the newer one doesn't shut at the top when you close this front bit, and that is the same with the older model. If the front is closed, the top bit doesn't close first, which is why they say in the instructions to close the top first before you shut the cockpit. And perhaps that's something there is an easy workaround for, but when you're dealing with these shaped pieces, it makes sense that the top comes down first, as usually the tops don't open for these style of ships. And now I can't remember exactly if we see it in the show with the top open, but it's usually the front piece, so it makes sense that that will be the last to close. If I take out the Yoda just for a minute, we can see that the interior of the new model is quite lacking. I mean, there's not much space to work with. They've got the controls lighting up on the sides, but besides that, it's quite a plain model, whereas The older model has the exact opposite problem. I feel like they've packed a bit too much, takes up a lot of space, but also means that the ship itself is a bit more bulky, and you can see there's just plain tiles there. They could have been printed. They could have put some printed 1x2 slopes. And there's a window in the back which don't show to anything. And it's just a bit more of an odd build. And especially this top bit all coming up, it means it's quite a bulky build. And unlike the new one, which is a lot sleeker with just this little bit popping up at the top, it's definitely a better set than it used to be. I will whack another poll in my community feed asking you which one you prefer. And there is no right answer. If you do prefer the old one for whatever reason, do let me know, because the old one definitely has a few parts that many people may prefer, such as the Technic style of building or the wings, which are very similar to other ships that have also come out. But this new model is really great from Lego, and whilst I would have preferred to see another Clone Wars ship and perhaps not another Yoda's Jedi Starfighter, it is a big enough improvement to have released their own set. And if you're looking for something for any fan of Lego for Christmas, including yourself, if you can pick this up on a sale, it's a really good set. Again, for the price, really it should have come with a third figure. But if you can pick this up with 20% off, it's well worth it and will please any fan of Lego Star Wars, especially if they've seen the Clone Wars. As I suppose people that haven't seen the Clone Wars, this is just another Yoda ship and they don't understand the significance of it, as I don't think we see it besides that arc at the end of Season 6. So I can definitely understand the majority of people not liking a re-release of this ship in particular, but Lego have done a good job. You can't fault them with this model. And you never know, perhaps they'll do a few more re-releases, as 25 years of Lego Star Wars is approaching next year. And I'm sure, much like when they did 20 years of Lego Star Wars, we'll be seeing many ships returning. And this was perhaps a tester for what we've got to come. Now, if you are interested in what sets may be rebuilt, I'll be sure to make a video with all the sets I would like to see for 25 years of Lego Star Wars. And let me know some of your ideas down in the comments, as I'd love to include some of your sets that you want to see created in the video. Be sure to like and subscribe so you don't miss more Lego reviews. And as always, may the Force be with you.